So let's get started. It is 5:32. We have 49 minutes of content in a 50-minute session. Oh, I forgot to hit start. So that's the way the lightning talks work. We cram a lot of stuff in. So each presenter gets about a little bit over 5 minutes. So lightning talk is strictly time limited. We have two types of lightning talks. We have Ignite style talks where the slides auto advance, and we have classic lightning talks where the speaker controls. Ignite style is kind of nice because you always get to the end of the presentation, even if you miss some of the middle. At the end of 5 minutes, I push people off. I haven't had to blow the whistle yet, but I'm prepared to. So when the bright stop sign goes away, the speaker has to be away so that we can get the next person up and ready to go. So I'm the first speaker, and we're a little bit behind, so I'm going to slip to, and don't touch the computer so you don't accidentally turn things off. So I'm Richard Esplin. I do community technology. I work with Jeff, and we're going to talk about finding a language pack. This is a 5-minute abbreviation of a 60-minute Tech Talk Live we did last June, and covering how to select the language and control the language that the Alfresco interface is in. So this is independent of the language of your content. So the easiest language pack to deploy is the one that's already in the product. And we have 11 supported languages. So to get to a supported language, you just change the language that your browser is requesting from share. The official list is at docs.alfresco.com for each release. And not everything is localized. Web Quick Start is not localized. It's an open source project. You can adapt to your needs. There are strings that originate in SharePoint Protocol, LibreOffice, and error messages that are not localized. And Workdesk and Records Management are being localized, but they're not in all 11 languages yet. So if you want a language pack that's not officially supported, Crowdin's a great place to go. This is where we manage our localization projects. One of our community members named Oksana set this up for us. This is a place to collaborate around language packs. Some of these are very raw and still under development. So this is the Vietnamese project. You'll notice some of these files say 0% translated, others say 100%. And different language packs are at different levels of being localized. So this is where you participate. Once a language pack is mature enough, the maintainer can request Oksana to package it. So it gets packaged as a jar. So it's not necessarily, you can wrap it in an AMP for maintenance, but it's really there for testing to drop in your Tomcat shared lib. And it shows up here. This is Alfresco community-translations.alfresco.org. And then it redirects to Oksana's server in Russia. But it's a legit server. So there are some projects that are more established. Not every project uses Crowdin and the packaging system there. These established projects you can get at addons.alfresco.org using the language pack component type. There are a variety of them. Some of these are country-specific, like Welsh or Portuguese, or British English. Some of these have made it into the official product, like Russian and Brazilian Portuguese. So the nice thing about an established project is that they're hosted in other places, so they can maintain multiple versions of Alfresco. So if you still don't have the language pack you want, then you probably need to create your own. So the suggested life cycle is start with Crowdin, build a community, start translating. Once you've got enough done it's useful, request to have it packaged. Then eventually you want to maintain more than one version of that language pack. Do that at addons.alfresco.com. Make sure you list it. Do it somewhere else. And then once you have customers that are using it, then there's a business case. You might be able to make it officially supported. The reason why you need to maintain it somewhere else is because Crowdin only supports one version of the string, so it's always the latest. Important tools. Of course, we talked about Crowdin. There is a translator mailing list at Alfresco translators at Google Groups. Project hosting site for maintaining multiple versions, for source control, issue tracker, specific instructions for your language pack. Text editor is very useful for QA and for managing some of those translations. And there's a list of scripts that one of the engineers uploaded to GitHub, and Alfresco localization tools that can help manage a lot of things. So if you want to put start a new language, process is go to Crowdin and register, contact us through a private message, then we'll create that target language. Usually Oksana does. She monitors that the closest. Then you can join the project for the language. Unfortunately, there's another step. You have to petition join the project once it's created after you've already petitioned create it. Then we'll make you the manager. Then you can add other people, approve them, give them proof of your permissions, things like that. A couple important tips if you're localizing Alfresco. Share uses Java-style encoding. It's not nice at UTF-8. It's ASCII with escapes. So you always have to use the native to ASCII utility that comes with Java to convert from Java style to your platform and back. Workdesk, however, is UTF-8, so it's much nicer to work with. If you're encoding, if you're doing a custom content model, you can localize the title and description properties and use a translation memory that suggests strings. Crowdin has one, there are others. Important gotchas. Unless you're doing a country-specific language pack, then try and be neutral, don't make people mad. There are a bunch of programming mumbo-jumbo that if you're translating, you don't want to muck with. Files in Crowdin don't have the locale suffix. So if it's not packaged through Oksana scripts, you need to add those or else Share won't know what to look for. And we already mentioned that Crowdin only has the most recent version of a set of strings. So a couple resources. We talked about the translator mailing list. IRC, Jeff and I talk about it all the time. There's about 30 people that hang out there. Both Oksana and I are on IRC, as well as a couple of the engineers who do a lot of localization. And the Tech Talk Live that I drew most of this stuff from, June 2013. So key wiki pages. So this is next steps if you're interested. I've updated the language pack development wiki page and the community translations wiki page so that they're up to date and cover most of this. They're not perfect, but they're pretty decent at this point. And now I have to sit down.
Thanks, Richard. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Good, good. I guess you get 30 seconds on the end. This is where if I knew how to twerk, I would twerk.
Please
Do we have somebody on the mic button in case Peter goes crazy?
Yeah. So I'm going to give a bit of advice for building an extension. And these are some tips and tricks that I've learned from both my consulting work as well as more recently the technology certification work I've been doing. This is going to be a fairly boring list of do's and don'ts, and it's not comprehensive. The actual list I use is longer than what you see here, but I figure at least it's a taste, and if you want to see the full list, please come and see me. The first thing to take into account, of course, and this is probably fairly self-evident, is don't use private APIs. The public APIs, if you're writing a client application, include things like CMIS, custom web scripts, and the REST API that was introduced in the cloud in 4.2. And for Java, there is a long list that I can provide to you. We're in the process of getting that documented. And of course, the JavaScript and FreeMarker root scope objects are also part of the public API. Another rule is please, please, please use AMP files for packaging. They are not a great technology, but they are better than anything else that exists. And if you think you have a better technology approach for module packaging out there, come and talk to me and I'll dissuade you of that. Finally, next up, don't override core files. This is a really common practice. Well, it's actually something that is sometimes necessary and is therefore common, but it voids the customer's warranty on support, so don't do it. Make sure your code is uniquely namespaced. We run into problems occasionally where some extension isn't namespaced and it conflicts with another extension and all hell breaks loose because of the way class loader resolution works. So please namespace things. There is a persistent rumor in the community that the lowercase beans give you more performance, flexibility, etc. Don't use them. They bypass important restrictions in Alfresco, checks in Alfresco. Your extension will not work properly. For transactions, use a thing called the retrying transaction helper. Don't use the transaction service. Your code will not work properly in certain valid circumstances. Better yet, don't do transaction control at all. Let Alfresco do it. Eventual consistency. Most of Alfresco's operations are immediately transactional. You can write some data and then read it back. Search is an exception. If you're doing searches or queries, including CMIS, they are eventually consistent. Authentication. Don't do it. Don't use authentication util.run as. Don't masquerade as another user. That is a security hole, and it's a real pain to try to troubleshoot when things go wrong. It also opens up the customer to security risks. There is one case in Alfresco where Alfresco itself doesn't clean up resources that you've used, and that's searching. If you're using search service to execute searches, you must close those resources in a finally block before your code completes. Don't access the database. I'm not even going to say anything more than that. It should be self-evident. People do it, though. It's a really bad practice. If you need to have store data in a database, put it in your own schema. When you are bootstrapping, don't store things in the data dictionary. Put them inside your AMP file and use class loader and class path resolution to load those things. It's the customer's prerogative to use the data dictionary, and Alfresco's, not yours. The indexes in Alfresco can get very large, and that can hurt performance. You should not store values, and you should only index values you intend to query by. Don't just index everything on the off chance you might need it. Threading. Again, don't do it. You don't need to do threading. Alfresco has a bunch of thread pools that will happily execute your logic. You're much better off letting Alfresco manage your logic than going off and spinning threads up yourself. Another quick note on that, the Alfresco APIs are synchronized. You don't need to do that yourself. Timeouts. If you're calling other systems, web service calls, REST API calls, things of that nature, always put a timeout in. Always, always, always. You will consume resources if you don't, and that will hurt Alfresco's behavior. Don't use protocols. If you're going to interact with Alfresco, use an API. Trying to use CIFS or WebDAV as a fake API is a really bad idea, and your client app won't work in all cases if you attempt to do that. Identifiers. This is a particular problem with CMIS. CMIS object IDs are not the same as node refs, and this is a really commonly held misconception. It's actually something I don't like about CMIS. Be really careful and make sure you understand CMIS's identifiers before you use CMIS. If you are authenticating, this is for client applications with Alfresco, using username, password, or OAuth tokens, things of that nature, please make sure you store those securely. It's a massive security risk for you to just put them in a text file or in a database. Don't touch the Explorer UI. It's nasty and gross, and it will make you very sick. I think my final point is, due to the hard work, or thanks to the hard work of Gab, Mao, and members of the community, we have a nice artifacts repository now. Please use that rather than the old downloadable SDK. That will go away at some point, hopefully soon. And this artifacts repository is a much better way to handle extensions. And for more information, come and see me. This is not yet documented formally. I'm in the process of doing that. But in the meantime, I'm happy to share what I have with you. Thank you very much.
One, two, 1, 2. Hello everyone, I hope that you're enjoying the summit so far. For those of you who have not met yet, my name's Andy Healey and I work on the Alfresco documentation team. I'd like to talk with you about how you can use the Alfresco documentation and help resources to make you and your users' Alfresco experiences better, simpler and faster. Now, I might possibly be the least technical person you're going to listen to at the summit, which kind of makes me the ultimate end user. Now, like all technically challenged people, I spend a lot of time trawling for help on the internet. And you know, some of it's good, it tells me what I need to do, job done. Some of it's bad. And a lot of it, well, I don't know because I couldn't find it anywhere. Now, we knew at Alfresco that we had a lot of help content. Some of it was great, some not so. What we wanted to do was make it all great so that finding an answer was simple. So we needed to understand how the help was used and what created that important moment where the user goes, I get it. As part of this improvement drive, we've added a feedback form to the help. We've had an amazing response from thousands of users telling us what it is, where it is we're going right. But even more useful, we've had lots of constructive feedback telling us where we could do better. Now, we would love to reply to all the feedback directly, especially this one, but because of the sheer volume, it's just not possible. But we do read every single piece of feedback. The documentation is now democratic, and every single vote for change is counted. A lot of the votes were for greater clarity between community and Alfresco 1 functionality. Previously, you might read a community help topic 5 times, and it wouldn't work. Where's the option? Why isn't it working? It's enterprise only. So our first step was splitting off the community docs. Now they have their own unique URL, this one here, which means that community users get to feel some love, and all Alfresco users get straight to the point. Community here, Alfresco one there, simple. The feedback said you also wanted a faster learning experience. Sometimes you do want to discover all those little hidden features. Other times you just want to get up and running. So what we've done is compile all the essential getting started info into a series of quick start guides. There's an Alfresco 1 quick start guide, a records management quick start guide, and even an admin quick start guide, so you can install Alfresco and get it running immediately. And for all you developers out there, you've got a whole new dedicated help section. It's called For Developers, and the content's grouped into coherent sections so you can quickly find what you need and get back to business. There's loads of stuff on web scripts, including lots of new tutorials. There's a brand new Alfresco extensions area, which has a section devoted to using the Maven SDK, and there's lots of updated content on the APIs. Now, searching the help to find an answer. It seems that this doesn't actually do it for a lot of people. One Alfresco user claims to have literally fallen asleep whilst using the help. For the real complicated stuff, there's no substitute for text, but there are other ways. A video can speak probably more than 1,000 words. In October, by popular demand, we added over 30 Alfresco 1 and records management videos to the help. And the community help on its own unique URL now includes some great Jeff Potts videos. This year, the Alfresco help videos had over 40,000 views in over 100 countries. There's several YouTube playlists which have all these videos on, so your users can get started with Alfresco without even looking at the help. And aware that most of us view the help as a last resort, Alfresco engineering are gradually integrating user assistance directly into Alfresco itself. If you've seen the new admin console, then this is the most obvious example, but there's lots of other subtle changes to improve usability that you won't even notice helping you. As well as extending the integrated help, we have a few other things in the pipeline. If, like me, you like to sit down with a good book, then you'll love the range of ebooks that we're working on. These will be great for learning about Alfresco wherever you are, or for giving to users as learning aids. When they're done, we'll be rolling them out through docs.alfresco.com, which is the entry point for all Alfresco docs, whether it's community, Alfresco 1, or older enterprise versions. We've been working on a sweet redesign of all the Alfresco helps to fully integrate them into the alfresco.com website. This will be coming soon. The prototypes look very cool, really simplify searching and navigation. The redesign also includes mobile optimization, so the help will be super usable on whichever device you use to view it. The Alfresco mobile apps help will also be relaunched in this format, so it'll be much simpler to use than the current built-in PDFs. The apps will be smaller, and we can update the help between releases. When it's done, we'll let you know by tweeting on Alfresco docs. We tweet about all updates and additions to Alfresco's user assistant here, as well as details of Alfresco product releases and other helpful stuff. So keep watching, and you are guaranteed to learn something that improves your life. So I guess that's me done. Remember that docs.alfresco.com is the place to go for all you and your users' questions. And if you Google for an Alfresco question, most times that's where you'll end up anyway. If you can't find the answer, then please let us know, and we'll see what we can do. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was excellent. It's not my slide. I'm not allowed to touch.
I did it for you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tony Parzgnat. I'm a project manager and technical architect at Technology Services Group. We're an Alfresco partner based in Chicago. Today, I'm going to talk about dynamic data list-driven constraints in Alfresco Share. That's kind of a mouthful. Really quick, constraints, specifically list constraints in Alfresco Share, are basically when you're editing metadata on a document, and if you set up a list constraint for a particular property, you'll see a drop-down list or a multi-select box if it's a multi-value field. Those show up automatically, and these list constraints are configured within the Alfresco content model. Here's an example of the XML configuration for the Alfresco content model. So you code your constraints, your list constraints, into the XML, and you provide the list of values. This raises a couple of problems. First of all, business admins, why do I have to make an IT request just to modify the values in my drop-down list? Similarly, our friends in IT also have a problem in that why do I have to code XML files and restart the Alfresco server in order to make changes to drop-down lists? And also, why are the business users calling and screaming at me? So, seeing this problem at a few different clients, I got to thinking, I sure wish Alfresco had some nice user interface for maintaining lists of values. Eventually, a light bulb went off in my head. Wait a minute, Alfresco does have this. They're called Datalist, and they've been in share forever. So most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Datalist and Alfresco share. So I decided to combine this and use Datalist to drive the values in my drop-down list rather than coding XML. So to implement this, it was pretty simple. I've been developing Alfresco customizations for a while, so when I say simple, simple for me. I had to extend the Datalist content model to include a new type of list for my constraint list. I also had to create a repository level web script that basically returned all the values in my data list via JSON. And I had to create a JSON or a share control for the user interface to actually consume the JSON. So here's a quick example. It's really easy to actually create your own custom type of data list. I didn't know that until I actually tried to do this. It's just like extending the content model to create a custom document type. My web script was also very simple. Basically, via URL, I make a AJAX request to, based on the name of the data list that I want to return values for, and the values come back as JSON. Then on the share side, the configuration, I created a couple of custom controls that kind of mimic the existing select one and select many controls, but instead, when I configure the controls, I also supply the name of the data list that those values are going to be coming from. And I have a quick video to show how easy it is to add a new value to a drop-down list. And it does not involve a 5-minute restart of Alfresco. So here I am going to the Edit Properties screen in Share. I created a dummy list here, just has some colors in it. Now if I want to add a new value, I'm going to quickly switch over and find the data list. I'll choose my data list for color. And here I see the existing values. All I have to do to add a new color to the list is say New Item. I'm trying to create Roy G. Biv here, so I'm going to add Indigo. One of the options, too, that I added was the ability to supply a sort order. So if I want my value to not come in alphabetical order, but in some other order, like if I want Indigo to come between violet and blue, I'll specify a sort order that's between the sort orders for violet and blue, so 55 in this case. When I save my change, I can go back to my document that I was modifying the metadata for. And magically, when I look at this list, hey, Indigo's there. How wonderful. So a few other considerations. Permissions. Basically, data lists in Share behave just like the document library and content in the document library. So consumers have view, all the way up to managers have view, create, edit, delete. So same permissions. So my recommendation is to create a special site in Share called System Admin or whatever you want to call it to put your data lists that are going to be driving your constraint lists, and only provide access to the business admins who should be modifying those lists. Installation is very simple. There's 2 amps, one for Alfresco and one for Share. Peter. Create your data lists and then modify your Share custom config to include the dynamic controls for your metadata values. If you have any questions about this, I'm here all week. Send me an email. Thank you.
Test, test, test. down with a bit of a cold, so you have to excuse me if my throat gets a little bit scratchy. Can everyone hear me? I'm Kyle Adams, Solutions Engineer / Ninja for Alfresco. I do not want your undivided attention. Here's my Twitter handle. Be sure to tweet all throughout the presentation. Tweet for not just me, but for the rest of the guys. What we're going to talk about today are HTML5 previews with Snowbound's VirtualViewer, because it's awesome. So what is the VirtualViewer? It's a universal document viewer. It supports a lot of different MIME types. It can display documents at high speeds, and more importantly, zero footprint, HTML5. No Flash, no Java applets, zero client-side dependencies. You don't have any mad administrators. You don't have any mad end users that you would require to install all these fancy things on client desktop. Some of the features that come with VirtualViewer are annotations, redactions, rubber band zooms, printing, exporting, full text search with hit highlighting, adjustable DPI, server-side caching, and even on-demand page rendering. So on the left-hand side, you'll see all the annotations. At the top, you'll see the document manipulation actions. On the right, you'll see the page thumbnails, document thumbnails, and the search for full-text search. Some of the annotation types that come with it out of the box are text overlays, shapes such as squares, circles, arrows, lines, highlighting, rubber stamps, sticky notes, and freehand drawing for all the creative types. Certainly not me. Here's a screenshot of the sticky note annotation. Of course, in Alfresco, you can put comments on single documents, but with these annotations, you could put comments on individual pages to enhance that collaborative experience. Here, I'm highlighting a piece of text that I want to bring extra attention to, and I'm bringing more attention to that text with a red arrow. So you can use this to enhance the text, bring attention to certain parts of that document, however you want to drive that process. This is an example of a patient record where we're going to redact protected health information. So for any highly regulated industry, you may want to redact some information and burn it into the document. Here's an example of a rubber band zoom. So instead of zooming in and out, you could select a portion of the document, and it'll zoom right into this fabulous picture of John Newton. It's a little bit old, but still pretty awesome. Full text search. So in this example, I'm searching for the word alfresco, and you'll see it's highlighted. On the right-hand side, we're actually filtering out all the pages. We're only seeing the pages that contain the word alfresco. Here's an example where you can adjust brightness for documents, contrast, gamma. So all the cool things that you can do in Instagram, but within Alfresco, if you think that's cool. High-level architecture. So left-hand side, of course, there's share customizations to drop in the viewer via iframe and the viewer plugin. And also we have the repository layer web scripts. And on the right-hand side, we have a way to consume all the RESTful calls. The project breakdown, we have the Alfresco content handler that's specific to VirtualViewer, Snowbound repo that contains all the web scripts and content models, and Snowbound share that contains all the share-specific customizations. The content handler, so that contains all the VirtualViewer-specific items for getting and saving documents, annotations, bookmarks, and user preferences. You can find help documentation here. We like help documentation, right, Andy? And get and post the web scripts on the Snowbound repo project. So these are get and post requests for getting documents, annotations, again, bookmarks, and user preferences. Content model, so there's one aspect, and the aspect has associations with 3 different types. The most important type, of course, is this annotation aspect, which has a permission level that corresponds with the annotations and the redaction flag. The Snowbound share project has the share module configuration that you can toggle on and off. The iframe for the VirtualViewer, and the MIME type evaluator. So you can choose when to display the virtual and when not to. Big shout out to Will Abson. I based the share side customizations on his sample project. You can go to it on GitHub if you want to build your own viewer implementation. And the connector is on GitHub, open source, free as in speech. Download it, modify it, send in feature request, bug request, do with it as you wish. And on the to-do list, I want to integrate the annotation permissions with Alfresco roles. Also, I want to enhance some of the document library views that come in 4.2. So in VirtualViewer, you can have different tabs. Kyle Adams, if you have any questions, send me an email. Also, go visit the booth upstairs and talk to Dan and Ed from Snowbound.
I'm right here.
I don't want. No. Seriously, I don't know why I'm here. But it's a challenge, so why not? Okay. First of all, hello. My name is Jean-Marie Pascal. I'm Android developer at Alfresco. And today, I want to talk about a solution to control the experience of mobile user using Alfresco server and the Alfresco mobile application for Android. So let's begin. Generally, when you start with Alfresco, you start by installing the product. Next, you create your own custom model, you create your own custom user interface, you correct the issues, and you continue development until you match perfectly what the user accepts. Time after time, you have created your own Alfresco experience. The solution is now stable with no bugs and can be released. The user loves it, and you know what you did. That you did a great work with Alfresco. But what happened when you looked at the Alfresco mobile application? What happened to your custom model, custom screen, the specific action you implement? It's not there. And you say something like, seriously, Alfresco? So the question is really clear. How can I control Alfresco mobile to match my custom configuration and development? Can't we implement something somewhere that can display this configuration for a mobile user? Okay, let's try a quick design of our solution. Ideally, the solution must support all versions of Alfresco server. As a developer and integrator, I want consistency, whatever Alfresco server is. Next, the solution must support both user and group context. Depending on who are using the application, I want a specific experience for this kind of user or this kind of groups. After that, of course, the solution can customize the experience depending on where the user are. I want a specific user experience based on specific sites, based on specific paths, or even more on content type. Next, the solution must be supported on different platforms and devices. Depending on which device you are using, I want to display more or less features and more or less information. And finally, the solution allows us, as developers, to enable, disable the same feature as we have on server side. So, for example, custom action, custom workflow, etc. So, in other words, the solution must do nearly everything and support everything. It's like a giant matrix where specific triggers we can enable or disable feature on demand. Something really powerful, but clearly something really complicated. I think it's too much for the beginning, too complex and too dangerous. I prefer to say, let's start simple, but let's make a start. My proposition is divided into two components. First, on server side, let's start with one single file, a JSON file. Because, as you may know, JSON file is a mobile-friendly format. This file will contain all information to change the mobility experience. Second, on the application side, I want in Alfresco mobile application a configuration service responsible to deal with information contained inside the configuration file. And do you know what? This solution already exists partially in Alfresco Mobile, and of course, it's firstly available on Android. You can test it right now with the latest version of Alfresco Mobile in Android. So, what's the feature? It's pretty simple. For this version, you can customize the main menu of Alfresco Mobile. I mean, you can hide or display some specific menu item like sites or company home. So how to activate it? How to activate this feature? First, create a configuration JSON file with the content illustrated in this slide. Each case related to a specific row. Then, inside your Alfresco server, create a mobile folder inside your data dictionary. Next, upload the configuration file. And it's done on server side. You just have now to install the Alfresco Mobile 1.3, and it's done. And here we go. This slide illustrates the same server, but with 3 different configuration files at different times. I don't know you, but for me, we clearly have 3 different mobile user experience. And what about the future? For the moment, the only thing we know is that we are going in this way, but we don't know how exactly, and we don't know what feature we want to enable or not. So the idea, we need your input, we need your help, and together we can achieve this and control Alfresco Mobile from an Alfresco server. My name is Jean-Marie Pascal, and I wanted to thank you all. I didn't know if I could achieve this, but I achieved this. Thank you.
So my name is Jared Ottley. I'm an engineer at Alfresco, and I'm going to talk to you today about cores. I find that cores, and we'll explain what it is a pretty fascinating new standard. Actually, it's a little bit old, but more and more application providers or browsers are supporting it. More and more application services are going to support it, especially as we move more and more to applications in the cloud, and as people make and create more JavaScript-based applications. So what is CORS? CORS stands for Cross-Origin Resource Sharing. It's a way of performing cross-domain AJAX calls. For anybody who's written any sort of JavaScript before, you know that you can't make a call from one application into another without getting stuck. So what browsers support this? All of these browsers with partial implementation on IE 8 and 9, and that has to do with a little bit with changing or modifying header information, but you can do that one. So how does CORS work? Well, there's nothing to implement in your JavaScript. It's all done by the browser and by the server. They do all of the heavy lifting in this, and we're going to talk about how that happens and what you have to do in Alfresco to enable this. All right, so CORS works. In your JavaScript, it sees that the browser sees that you're making an AJAX call, and what it does is actually says, all right, let me see if the application server supports this. And so it makes this options call out. If it supports it, then it allows the API request to go out. So simple jQuery example here. I have my methods or my URLs. I have my authorization that I'm going to need to be able to talk to, in this case, Alfresco, and we're going to handle those calls whenever they come back. So very much similar to any calls that you would ever do. On the server side, Alfresco doesn't ship with any core support, but we do use it as part of the Alfresco for Salesforce integration. So this has been, it's been tested. We know that it can work as part of Alfresco. So what do you need to do? You need to install 2 jar files, CORS filter and the Java properties utils. They can both be found at this location for that. Next, we're going to need to configure Alfresco. And so there's a couple things we need to do. First, we need to modify our web.xml file. We need to add a filter to the references of the filter provided by that. And then we need to add a filter mapping to say which URLs do we want to enable our CORS calls for, our cross-domain calls for. Now, we also wanted to decide which of those we want to do. So there's a full list of different URLs we want to do. So service, our normal RESTful API, or normal WebScript API, CMS Atom, and then with 1.1 and CMS 1.1 on 4.2, you might want to enable the JSON bindings. So now, in Alfresco, what's going to happen is So when you make a call from your JavaScript application to against the Alfresco server, it's going to make the options call. Once the options call occurs, then it's going to do your level of your authentication, and then the API request is part of that. So the filter can be placed anywhere within the web.xml. However, the filter mapping must be put in a specific place. It has to happen after authentication, or that options call will fail as part of that. Now in 4.2, this means that you should probably place it after the global localization filter, but before the CMS security context cleaner. That should be the first and the second filter mappings that are there. But by rule, it should be before anything. Now once you have it in there, that's it. Cores will be enabled. You should be able to make cross-domain calls. But there might become a chance where you want to have do some additional configuration to limit some of the calls or types of actions that occur on Alfresco. And if you do some configuration, here's what you need to do. You either need to pass by system property when you start Alfresco the course configuration file to point to the properties file, or do it as an init param, or you can do all of these as individual parameters to configure that one. If you do this, don't change the generic HTTP request or support credentials. We want Alfresco to support authentication, and we want to allow share to continue to work against that one. We also want to make sure that, or be able to cache or make it so that when we make our calls, we don't have to, the browser doesn't have to make calls over and over again so we can give it a time to live. Also, we can limit what applications can make calls to this one. So we can specify a list of applications that support that one. One of the things that we provided to Alfresco to this filter is the ability to allow dynamic subdomains. When our Salesforce applications, the subdomain NA14, EU1, those dynamically change, and we don't want to have to specify those specifically because we don't know what they are. We can also limit or say which HTTP methods we support. As part of that one, those are the default ones, but we might want to be able to support things like deletes as well as part of that one. We also might want to change or expose different sets of headers that are provided with that. Those are the limited ones that are there, but we might want to add additional headers that our applications may depend on as part of the process. Now, it's a quick little demo. You see I have a JavaScript right here. It's going against the server. It's at xmp.alfresco.com. I'm going to go and do my application, which is hosted at emerson.alfresco.com, and we'll see that I get my JSON back from one domain to the other one. So if you want more information about cores, you can go to any of these resources, as well as I'll have more information about using Alfresco tickets and OAuth that you could possibly, an OAuth for cores support in Alfresco.
Okay, hi folks. I'm Bindu Wavell from Zia Consulting. I'm the chief architect, and this is just a little talk on live office editing. So that's basically something you've probably seen before, where you click on a link in a website and it causes a document to download into your browser. And that was not right. Upside down, okay. Download into Office, like Word or Excel or whatever. You make edits and you save, and you never have to download the document to your desktop, open it in Office, save it back to your desktop, and check it back in. So you've probably seen that in some Alfresco products. And it originally was developed for SharePoint by Microsoft. When Office is installed on your Mac or your PC, some plugins are installed for the browser that allow that to happen. So for IE, there's an ActiveX control, and for all the other browsers, there's something called an NP API plugin. So Alfresco, like I said, in Share, they have the ability to do live Office editing. You have to install the SharePoint protocol support. I don't know if you still have to do that manually or if you get it for free in 4.2. And then Workdesk also has the ability to do this if you have the Office Workdesk feature. Originally with Workdesk, they had a Java launcher, so they weren't using the Microsoft plugins. They added support for the Microsoft plugins in, I think, around 3.1.
And then I'd like to tell you a little bit about a new plugin that we helped develop that was released in 4.1.1. So basically, we had a customer, and they were using Google Chrome on Macs. So the first thing that happened was on the Mac, Java went to 64-bit, and Chrome is still 32-bit, so you can't use Java anymore. So that was a problem. So with Workdesk, they were using this Java launcher. They switched over to the using the Microsoft NP API plugins, and then with Chrome 21, Google stopped supporting the older NP API spec. So we actually went out and we found an open source project called Firebreath, which is basically a framework. It uses C++ and allows you to create plugins for browsers. You can create all sorts of things. They can have a user interface component if you want. In our case, we don't have a user interface. We actually mimic the API of the Microsoft NP API plugins, but it supports the new NP API spec. Actually, we can produce an ActiveX control as well, so it works nicer in IE. In theory, we can produce plugins that also work on Unix, although probably you don't have Office on Unix, so those aren't packaged. But it would be possible to release those. So these were contributed to Alfresco, to the Workdesk team, and they incorporated them into the product in 4.1. So it does require a little bit of an install, but it's packaged for Windows. Like I said, there's a MSI for Windows, and there's a installer for Mac as well. So some good stuff. Office Workdesk actually includes a share extension that allows you to use this stuff against Office Workdesk. So Office Workdesk gives you some extra capabilities than what you get normally with share, where you can actually set properties through the open and save dialog boxes in Office apps and things like that. And all of that, it's helpful to be able to be triggered by this new plugin. The code has been open sourced. We have been told this will be included in share. I'm hopeful that that will be true, so folks can use that. And the big downside is after we got all of this done, like 3 weeks later, the browser vendors said they were not going to support NP API anymore. That's going to take a while, and they're talking about providing a whitelist capability, so we're hoping to be able to sort of, when we install the plugin, since it's a manual install, to essentially inject them into the whitelist. But this should work at least for the next few years. We're not aware of any other technologies that will. Am I long or short?
30 seconds left.
Okay, cool, thanks. I'm nearly done. We're not aware of any other technologies that would allow us to launch the Office apps this way. So if anybody knows of a way to do that, that would be great. We want to make this something that can be used by the community. Thanks.
One more round of applause for all our excellent speakers.